If you crack first, Dave, it won't make you any less of a man.
I'm nowhere near cracking.
Neither am I, my friend.
Dave. And Matthew, what is it now? For God's sake, no one's smoking, okay?
But nothing!
You know what we need around here is an anti-whining ordinance.
So just sip your sniveling little lip and haul your skinny ass out of here!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. We've got some more comic industry news. This is going to cover the sales, at least the sales trends for the spring portion of 2021. Obviously, we just got the full sales estimates from ICv2 and Comic-Con for the entire year of 2020. We talked about that, at length more than one time. But I will talk about this here today as an early Saturday video. I don't do these all the time, but as a reminder. Here in a little bit, it's starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. The Comics Aficionados will be live here on the channel. Got a lot of great guests, and we're going to be talking about the best and worst comics of 2021 so far. If you're interested in that, we will be conversating about that list as well as, let me bring it up. We're going to be talking about who's the real Wolverine. Is it Logan or is it Laura? The legacy of the New 52. And then we're also going to talk about James Tynion's Batman. Is it good? I don't get a lot of people mad because I have opinions. They do not line up with a lot of the channel readers, which is fine. I enjoy that we can come here and have an honest conversation about these things. But right now we are not talking about those topics. We're talking about the spring sales. According to ICv2.com, these are not set in stone. These are trends that they're talking about. If you go to their book scan numbers, those are a lot more definitive, but those are only the book channel. Those don't include the direct market local comic shops. And so there's a few paragraphs in here, and I'll read each one, essentially verbatim from the ICv2.com article, and then I'm going to give my thoughts. The comics and graphic novel market had an excellent spring with record sales for many, according to their interviews and analysis of ICv2.com. This is excellent news. Obviously, we want the comic book market to do very well. We hope for record sales across the board, for every platform and within every market. That would be the hope, at least for me here at Thinking Critical YouTube. So this is great news. Now let's get into the details. Streaming continues to drive graphic novel sales, with the Invincible compendiums getting multiple mentions and moving up the charts in both the comic book and in comic stores. From the big two, DC Comics appears to be improving its graphic novel program, while Marvel is having trouble keeping books in stock. We've heard this a lot. Obviously, a lot of these characters and storylines are being featured, adapted into these streaming shows, and it's making them very important and desirable as far as new readers. We definitely heard more than once that the Invincible compendiums and trades, people were out seeking them because they watched that first season on Amazon Prime, came away very impressed with the story, and they can't get it up. They don't want to wait for season 2, so they are looking for the original source material from Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley from their original series. This is very good, and I think Image were smart. I think they were able to get some new copies to print for the compendiums and some of the other Invincible material, expecting that perhaps that streaming show would hit and people would have an appetite for more Invincible material after they were finished with the first season if they hadn't read it already. Way to anticipate the market and get the comic books out there, and that is a good job. Something DC and Marvel could definitely learn from. Marvel, much more so. It seems like every time they have an interesting MCU series debut on Disney Plus, there's no materials on the market. Everything is out of print. All the collections that have these comic books. Now, most people that are not comic book readers are going to go into the back issue market looking and seeing if they can get a complete run of whatever story led up to that. They're going to be looking for trades. And for some reason, Marvel cannot anticipate the fact that a WandaVision television show might have people's interest piqued in the stories that, inspired it. Or Captain America and the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier might have people interested in the Mark Grunwald run or some of the other runs that introduced important key aspects of that series, like Ed Brubaker. Now we've got Loki. these aren't my favorite shows, but people are enjoying them. We have new fans, people that have known Loki for a while through the MCU. Now we're getting a different side of Loki, different stories inspired by different parts of the Marvel comic universe. And there's no Loki material. They have a Loki omnibus coming out. It just got delayed until the fall. So they'll miss the entire peak of that. What a wasted opportunity to bring in and welcome some new readers, show them how great this source material is, show them how great the medium of comic books is, and maybe convert some viewers to fans, to comic book readers, because the comic book market needs new people to come in and pick up the hobby. Marvel is dropping the ball in spectacular fashion, seemingly every single month. And that's just the way it is, baby. I do not know what Marvel's problem is. It's nice to see that the Image Comics and some of the other indie publishers are definitely out there. If you get a new season of The Boys, guess what you get? Some new printings of Boys trades, because that's smart business. The next paragraph, the hottest graphic novels right now are manga. Manga is selling at triple the levels they were 2 years ago in the book channel, according to monthly numbers provided by MPD Bookscan. That includes 85% of the entire market, including big box retailers and e-commerce like Amazon. Demand is also extremely strong in comic stores, according to Comic Hub reporting in our interviews. We've known manga has been a trendsetter and leading the market for quite some time. It's essentially responsible for the vast majority of all new sales within the comic industry for a couple of years now. We know that this year, as far as tracked years, was the best-selling in history for manga. I believe it topped 2007 as far as tracked numbers. So manga is absolutely white hot right now. If you look at the top 20 sales monthly for graphic novels, you're going to see manga. There's been a month or two in there where like that graphic novel March from IDW, which was like Congressman Lewis's life story, after he passed away, that was in there, but you're not going to see really anything DC or Marvel related. Certainly not in quite a while. And that's disappointing. I know Larry from Larry's Comics, who's been a contributor on the channel, really good guy. Unfortunately, he's been busy and we haven't been able to get him back on the channel, but I want to get him back soon because I like him and I think he has good opinions. And he likes to bust my nuggets on the channel. He gets upset when I talk about the sales of manga, and he's like, "Listen, we sell manga in comic stores too." Yes, I'm not denying that comic book stores, the direct market, sell manga as well. But a lot of the gains as far as manga are going to the book channels, like Walmart, Amazon, bookstores, Barnes & Noble, stuff like that. Unfortunately, I wish more people would go to their local comic shops for their manga, and maybe they could discover some other offerings that maybe weren't manga, but were in the same, genre or something that maybe would fit their reading styles as well. Maybe they could convert over to comic book readers. We shall see if they're able to do that. But yes, you can get manga in your local comic shop. If you can only find manga in the big stores like your Walmart or Barnes & Noble or Amazon, go to your local comic shop and say, listen, why don't you carry manga? Perhaps if they have enough people come in and say, I would like to come and buy my manga from you rather than some enormous corporate entity, perhaps you can convert them over to a manga selling shop. Not that manga is going to take over, but hopefully it has a place in your comic shop. And I think that hopefully these enormous gains that manga is creating within the industry start translating over into bigger gains for the local comic shops as well. I know that's what Larry wants. That's what I want. And Larry, I'm sorry if I made it seem like I wasn't acknowledging that you can get manga in local comic shops. You certainly can. And if you get a chance to go to Larry's Comics in Lowell, Massachusetts, definitely go there. Tell him Wes sent you. And Larry's a really good guy. He'll give you a great deal. Next up, kids' graphic novels appear to have plateaued. And while the big franchises continue to sell well, the number of titles is growing faster than the growth of the market, leading to underperformance of some new titles. We've been seeing this for a couple years as well. Dogman is an enormous heavyweight in that market. Raina Telmeyer, Smile, those kind of stories. Also, your Captain Underpants. There's a few big name titles, big franchises that kick butt in the kids graphic novels section. But they've been flooding the market, not just DC, a little bit of Marvel, Scholastic. Everybody's been flooding this market once they saw there's a sales trend going up, and it's been saturated. And it's hard to make a dent with a new title anymore or get any, traction. That's kind of what happens. When you have a market starts to hit, all of a sudden it gets oversaturated. At that point, you were too late. And it feels like that's what's happened to DC and Marvel for the most part. They were too late to the party to reap the benefits of a growing market and also be part of the trend, be like trendsetters. That's the biggest problem, really, when you think about Marvel and DC. They are completely reactionary for the most part, although DC is doing some solid work on their digital front, but they're almost completely reactionary to what other people are doing and following trends instead of being the trendsetter. So by the time you get there and you come up with your strategy and you hire somebody and you get your products ready to go into that market, it's already been saturated and you're too late. They need to become trendsetters instead of trend followers. And I think that will definitely turn around the fortunes of Marvel and DC. I could see DC doing that a lot faster than Marvel. Marvel feels like they're very reactionary, along with their parent company, Disney. In periodical comics, also known as floppies, X-Men, Spider-Man, and Batman remain staples of comic store sales from the big two, with DC bringing more heat than Marvel Comics. But the real action was in publishers below the big two in size. Image Comics, Boom Studios, and Scout Comics were repeatedly mentioned in our interviews as publishers whose books were consistently outperforming expectations. That is all great news. Spider-Man, under Dick Spencer, has hit its stride and continues to sell. Batman obviously is just kicking butt. It's like 40% of all new DC comics have Batman in them. I would disagree with the X-Men stuff. There are 2 X-Men titles. I believe it's X-Men and Wolverine that continue to do very well on the Marvel charts. But for the most part, the rest of the X-Men line sales, and I've seen the numbers, have been quite disappointing in comparison to even like a year ago. And I'm surprised they're not mentioning Thor. I've seen those sales numbers too, and like Thor is surprisingly still outperforming kind of the established baseline for Thor numbers. Like Donny Cates Thor was kicking its butt, as well as Venom, although we don't know what Venom's going to do now that we have a new creator on there. Now let's talk. Now that we're talking about the big two, let's talk about the real big gains on the periodic comics front in your direct market, and it is the indie comics. I have a top 10 comic books of 2021 showing up. I believe it's on Sunday, so tomorrow, and a majority of it is indie. DC, in my opinion, is struggling as far as quality, but according to their interviews, DC is selling better or has more heat than Marvel right now. I don't think either of them have heat right now. I'm tired of both of them, but Boom Studios especially is kicking ass and taking names. You think about Something That's Killing the Children, We Only Find Them When They're Dead, Berserker, obviously, and they've got some real high quality stuff out there. Once in Future, Eve. I know I'm leaving a few off, but Boom looks really great now. I'm not as high on Image right now, but they have a lot of high-selling creators coming in. You've got the Scott Snyder, Noctera, Undiscovered Country stuff. We've also got Jeff Johns coming aboard with Geiger. So you got a lot of big-name creators in there. I believe James Tynion just had a new series as well. I'm forgetting the name, but Image is also doing well. I always hear great things about Scout Comics. I wish I was reading more of them, and I probably should look into more of those. But indie comics, the indie scene seems to be, that's where the heat is right now. It's definitely outperforming in comparison to where they were before, what DC and Marvel had done prior. And then the last part, the part of the market with the most froth is high-grade slab back issues, where prices on key books featuring the introduction of characters have escalated rapidly, along with demand. Looking ahead, back issues are part of the market. That's most vulnerable to a shock as entertainment and spending options expand. We just talked about that with Perch on the channel. As people start going back on vacation and they can go to movies again, how much money are they going to continue to put into collectibles and high interest key comic books? But we have an entire show dedicated to this paragraph right here called Slabbed and Wrong. It's on every Monday. It's also simulcast on the podcast as well on Tuesday. And all we do is talk about comic book collecting. If you're interested in that, definitely join us for that show. It's going to go live eventually. It's not live yet. But the back issue market keys are hotter than can be. It's absolutely insane what some of the numbers have done. And definitely, you can look at the sales number of 2020 and say, wow, there's an enormous decrease as far as dollars in the direct market. That's only new comics. If your shop was prepared and had a nice stock of back issue comics, there's a chance that they had record sales. I'm hearing that from several shops, that if you had a lot of back issue comics and you're ready with e-commerce, the pandemic shutdown sucked, but it was definitely survivable, and people started looking to new parts of the market, specifically that one. So the comic shops that were prepared really reaped the rewards, and everybody's kind of catching up at the moment. But it has not cooled off. People are still definitely putting their money down for the back issue, like keys and whatnot, that have been slapped, which has also led to pretty much year-long waits for CDC, CBCS, was it PGX, all the grading companies. They're all just slammed right now. And we also know that the parent company of CGC was just purchased by a venture capital group with a lot of high visibility investors like Jay-Z, LeBron James, some other athletes and stuff like that. So this trend with collectibles is definitely going up. Pele specifically said in our last episode of Slabbed and Raw that this has everything to do with NFTs and digital collectibles in the future. We shall see what happens, but that is what this article from ICv2.com had to say. I gave my rebuts, my thoughts on the paragraphs, what we're seeing, how does it line up with what we've been reporting. I think we've been pretty much on top of this. There were just a couple of things that I wanted to make some clarifications on there, though. And Larry, I'm sorry I didn't say you guys sold manga. If you want some manga, go to Larry's Comics in Lowell, Massachusetts. He'll hook you up, baby. And thank you all for joining me. And definitely check us out. The Comics Aficionados are live here in the not too distant future. It might have already happened. Watch the replay if you caught this late. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.